Please be seated. I want to start tonight with kind of in the spirit of Lent, and I have some confessions for you tonight. I really struggled with this reading. I didn't think this was a reading I could possibly find enough to speak about. I had two big issues with this reading. First off, I got a woman who doesn't get called by name. All of the other women that we have had, that we have looked at, you hear the name, you know the story, an image comes to mind. Generally speaking, when you say the woman at Bethany, which when I was planning this and talking to people that I was going to be doing it, nobody knew who I was talking about. When you hear the story, everybody knows it. So my second confession for you tonight is I struggled with the cost of the ointment. I was right there with those disciples, flipping out. I can't help it. Now, 300 denarii, it sounds like a lot, but it's difficult to know what the value is. If I said 300 pennies, dimes, loonies, you'd have a real concept of what the value is. Well, it said that 1 denarii is 1 day's wage. So, $36,000 for ointment. I kind of feel justified flipping out with them. I mean, when you hear that, when you think about, that is double what people on government assistance get in a year. My first reaction was to join with them. So I want to explore this together with you. Jesus is at the home of Simon the leper, and this woman comes in. So who is she? In today's reading from Mark, as well as the Gospel from Matthew, she is simply this unnamed woman. In the Gospel of Luke, she is referred to as the sinful woman. And in the Gospel of John, she is Mary of Bethany, who, when we hear that, we know she is the sister of Martha and Lazarus. But we really don't know for sure. Was she a stranger or was she a close friend? And why did she have such an expensive jar of ointment? Some researchers that I found online said it was a wedding dowry. But at no point are we ever given the impression that she was a rich woman with money to throw away. We hear Jesus say, she has done what she could. So this jar was likely all her wealth. She doesn't offer to do it for Jesus and ask for something in return. She just does it, giving freely all that she has, with no expectation of what she will get in return. Now, I don't know about you, but in today's society, it's almost daily we are asked to give to one charity or another. When you go to Walmart, Zehrs, Canadian Tire, doesn't seem to end. And that's why when I do my fundraising for the Anglicans in Action team, I created these personal donation envelopes. When you ask somebody and you're going around with that sheet, people feel obligated. And it's not as free giving. But when somebody hands me one of those envelopes sealed up, there's a look of joy. You know they have given freely, no matter how much is in there. They did it because they wanted to, and they gave it freely. So we have this woman that breaks open the jar, pours it over Jesus' head. Now, once this is done, it's not like you can collect it back up, reuse it, or sell it. It's just like pouring water on a flower. Once it's given, you can't take it back. So now the disciples see this and they're flipping out and claiming it could be sold and the money used to feed the poor. And that's likely why I joined in with flipping out with them, because I can imagine how many meals that would provide, how many beds and shelters could be available. Now Jesus chastises the disciples for their reaction. Let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has performed a good service for me. Now in one translation I read, it kind of changes that tone a little. It says, what she has done for me is a beautiful thing. He then continues on with, for you always have the poor with you, and you can show them kindness whenever you wish, but you will not always have me. Jesus knew this was happening just days before his death, but we don't have that ability to know how long we will have with friends or loved ones. Yet we act as though we have all the time in the world, constantly running from one thing to another. In the moment, they all seem so very important. And when we aren't doing that, we're watching TV, playing video games, or wasting time on Facebook. While I'm not saying we shouldn't take time for all these things, but we need to find a balance between our many obligations, some downtime to unwind, and making sure we have time for friends and loved ones. If you don't find balance, you may have regrets later. And what seems so important then, was it really worth passing up time with a loved one? Jesus continues with his foreshadowing of his own future. She has anointed my body beforehand for its burial. Truly I tell you, whenever the good news is proclaimed in the world, what she has done will be in remembrance of her. And all these years later, the story is remembered. And it was so important that it's in all 4 Gospels that tell about it. Now, on reflecting of this reading, I found myself looking back at times when my name didn't matter as much as my actions. I belonged to a medieval reenactment group, and when I became involved with the group, I joined a household. So it's just a group of people with common interests, and we enjoyed spending time together. A lot of what we did was service-oriented, helping with setup and tear down, cleaning up, or helping to work in the kitchen. Now, the name of the household was Black Patch. Now, at the time I joined, I was only 17, so the rest of my closet was black. Why not my medieval garb? So, part of the reason I joined this group was I didn't fit in with the other groups. I wasn't into combat activities. My handwriting is atrocious, so the scribble arts were out. I think I can break a sewing machine in record time, and kitchen appliances and me are not friends. And still being in school, research was not high on my list. But this group was also different in another way because, well, we were the misfit toys. We didn't belong with anybody else. We enjoyed doing these little service things, but again, we weren't like the others. And quite often, we were known for what we did, but we weren't always known by individual names. Now, I questioned the name of the group at one point. Of all things, Black Patch. Why Patch? You know? And I was told we were helping to patch in the quilt where things were needed. We would appear out of nowhere when things needed to be done or someone needed help. We never looked for recognition, peerage, or knighthood. This kind of behind the scenes helping out is something I've always enjoyed ever since I was young. And if you know my mom, you know I had the best role model. So was today's reading really about the cost of the ointment? Was her name ever a factor in how this story was told? No. We need to be mindful of how we spend our time, use our possessions and wealth. We also need to remember that time with loved ones is limited, and we don't know when it will come to an end. So my final confession tonight is, I was wrong about this reading. I learned many years ago that God has a plan, and He finds a way to make it happen, just like Jonah and the whale. And it's not always easy to see until you take a look back. I have certainly come a long way with a new look at this reading and a better perspective on how I should live my life. I am so grateful to have explored this and to have been able to share it with you. Amen.